You're listening to Meet the Thriller Author, the podcast where I interview writers of mysteries, thrillers, and suspense books. I am your host, Alan Peterson, and this is episode number 58. In this episode of the podcast, I'll be interviewing John C. Dalglish, who was born in Toronto, Canada, and moved to the United States when he was a teenager, and now lives in Southwest Missouri with his family. He's the author of 3 different series that he refers to as Clean Suspense novels, which have sold over 150,000 copies. Talk to John about the Clean Suspense genre, his writing process, and a lot more. We'll get to that interview here in just a moment. Before I get to the interview, though, I'd like to let you know about a promotion by A.C. Fuller, who was guest number 40 on the podcast. He is running a Kindle Countdown deal on Amazon until November 24th. And so during that time, you can get book 1 of his series called The Anonymous Source at a discounted price of 99 cents, down from $4.99. 291 Amazon reviews, 4.5 star average. It's a great book, and so it's a great opportunity to pick it up for just 99 cents until November 24th. All right, let's get on with the episode and meet John C. Dalglish.
Hey everybody, this is Alan Peterson with Meet the Thriller Author. And for this episode, I have John C. Dalglish on the phone. John, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to talking to us.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be on.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly, or did I butcher it?
No, you did pretty good. It's Dalglish.
Okay, that was close. So for our listeners, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your books?
As my bio says, I was born in Canada and moved to Florida as a teenager. And down there, I tried writing my first book, which was a long time ago. It never did come to fruition, even though I still remember the opening scene. And then I moved to Missouri with my family, which is where we are now. And my son, David, who's an author also, got in early on Kindle stuff. And so I had seen what he was doing, and I actually edited some of his early work. And one day my wife said to me, she said, I can't put 3 sentences together and make them come out in any logical order, so he must have got it somewhere. So why don't you give it a try? And that's where how Where's My Son came about.
Oh, that's interesting. I think I know your son. I'm aware of your son. He writes like fantasy stuff.
He does. He's Hobbit and he's both traditionally and self-published. So he's done really well with it.
Yeah, I thought that last name was sounded familiar. Small world.
Yeah. It's I've got 3 sons, and so there's 5 of us in the family, and 2 of us are writing. So
that's pretty cool. It runs in the family. So, could you describe your books to our listeners?
My first book was Where's My Son, and I've had people comment how the detective that's in that book doesn't really show up until it's almost a third of the way through the book. What it was is that I was seeing whether I could do it at all. And when I got to the end of the book and put it out, I decided that I kind of liked the detective that I'd brought into the story. And so I thought that I would do a series on him and his partner, providing that that people like the first book. So it turned out that they did, and one of the comments that I got was that there wasn't any swearing or any sex scenes in the books. I had thrown in a couple words for color because I thought it needed a dose of reality, but it turned out that a lot of the people that liked the book in the beginning was because a lot of that stuff was left out. And are you familiar with Christy Barrett?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, she's another author on Kindle and stuff. I don't know what her publishing history is, but she does a set of mysteries that are referred to as squeaky clean mysteries. And I had seen that around my books. And so I just labeled my books as Clean Suspense and took the few words that I had in Where's My Son out and just went from there. And as you probably know, finding a niche seems to be the trick or one of the tricks to get found on the Kindle and on Amazon. And this so-called Clean Suspense niche really worked out well for me.
Yeah,
so
your books have been doing fantastic.
Oftentimes you'll hear there's nobody more astounded than the author himself. And that's certainly the case here. We're quite thrilled that people have enjoyed the books. We have 3 series now, and I think you mentioned the Homicide series is the one that had caught your eye.
Yeah, the City Murder series.
The City Murder series, right? I'm sorry, I call them the Homicide books because we made them so that they're very easy to title. Mm-hmm. You pick a city and put it in front of Homicide, so I don't have to come up with titles on the series. But it came about because I didn't just want to do another detective series. I had the Jason Strong series was doing really well, and I had written a book. You're out near San Francisco, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Mm-hmm.
I wrote a book called Keiko's War, and it was about World War II, San Francisco, and how the Japanese were moved to camps out of San Francisco. So I enjoyed it, and it was a kind of a romance, and I put it out there, but I didn't have a following in that genre, in the romance, so to speak. So it didn't do nearly as well as my other books. And my wife said, your readers are mystery readers, they're crime readers and stuff. You need to do another series in that. And that's how the City Murders came about. Rather than come up with a new crime-fighting duo, so to speak, just new characters in a new city each time, and it's really been enjoyable to do.
Yeah, that's what really caught my attention because, like you said, you always hear you have to have, you write a series, but it's usually the same characters, whereas it's a series, but the city is the character, and everyone else changes, right?
Right. It's been, it's been interesting for me to, examine the cities, and I got my first taste of it in doing Keiko's War with San Francisco, and learning so much about the city to do it. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And so, I just started with Boston, and I'm just finishing today, as a matter of fact, the 6th one, which happened.
Oh, are you there?
Yeah. Did I lose you?
Sorry. Yeah, you cut out a little bit. Talking about a mystery, you said it's in, and then I didn't hear the where it's at. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, I was saying I just finished Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Or I'm finishing it today, is number 6 in the City Murder series.
And so how much preparation do you have to do to learn the cities? Or do you write on cities that you've visited before? Or?
I started with Boston because I had been there, and I've been to Denver. I grew up, obviously, in Florida, and so I knew Miami. So I did do cities that I knew to some extent, but as far as, for instance, Dallas, I've driven around the outside of it twice, going by. That's the extent of it. And in Chicago, I've never been there other than going through on the airport. But as most readers know, Google can be quite helpful. I try to literally pick places that are both the town's known for, but also to find things that are not as well known, but speak to the kind of city that it is. And so it's been really enjoyable.
Yes, I think it's really smart too, like you were saying with the Clean Suspense, because that's something that you hear people saying that, I got a bad review because people are upset because of the language, for example. So it's very interesting that you found that niche of, for those people who don't want to having to put up the bad language and all that stuff. So it's fascinating how it sounds like you kind of fell into it, but it's just such a smart move from a business side.
Yeah, and I fell into it because in my own life, I'm just not by nature. I don't swear a lot, so or I don't swear at all. So putting them in the books was something that I did that wasn't what I would normally do, and I just don't happen to use those words very often, and so I'm not comfortable using them. And as a result, it almost came across as phony, I thought, in the books. And so it was easy for me to do that. And the kind of books, I know you had another author on probably a week or so ago who mentioned that he wrote the kind of books that he liked to read. And so in my case, I just don't like a lot of that stuff in the books. So I was writing what I liked as well. Fortunately, it turns out there's a lot of other people that feel the same way. It was just natural for me to write without it. And so it was easy to say, okay, well, I'm just not going to do it. And it has worked out well, but it also means that I'm comfortable writing what I'm putting out there. And, so it does make for a shorter book. People will complain sometimes my books are too short, which I guess is a good complaint. But, if you're cutting some of that stuff out that you can put in, it's going to cut down your word count some. But it is what it is type thing,
And it's your Jason Strong mysteries. Is that also considered a clean suspense or clean mysteries?
Yeah, the Jason Strong and the City Murder series are both listed as clean suspense. I did a true Christian series, Christian fantasy, called The Chaser Chronicles, and that, of course, is not listed, I don't think, as true clean suspense. In a way it is, but it's directed at a Christian audience, so I would hope that it would be. but yeah, the Jason series is, it was the originator, and it's been that way. I found that even words like shoot and crap, they don't ring true, and I've gotten to the point now where I don't even bother putting them in just as emphasis, it's because it doesn't ring true any more than the swearing rang true to me. So, hence the clean suspense. But yes, it's been a tremendous blessing. The response to it has been, it turns out there's a lot of people out there that can live without some of the other stuff. And so that's good for me.
Absolutely, yeah. You give people what they want, and yeah, like you said, it's good for you.
Yeah.
And so everybody wins on that one.
Yeah, it's been quite I'm Amazon exclusive, and of course, there's a lot of talk about going wide or staying Amazon and all that. And but for a self-pub guy like me in Southwest Missouri, Amazon's been given me the ability to reach a lot of people that otherwise I wouldn't be doing this.
Even if you go wide, I mean, I would imagine Amazon's still a big chunk of the business anyway. So.
Yeah, they've got they're now that Boston Homicide is on Prime Reading right now, which is their newest, or one of their newest programs anyway. And are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not.
So they have the Kindle Unlimited has been around for a while, that pages read thing that they're doing. But Prime Reading essentially is, they have roughly 1,000 books or magazines, that sort of thing, that anybody that is an Amazon Prime member can read them for free. They rotate the titles in and out so that they change, but there's a maximum of about 1,000 books available. And Where's My Son was picked up on Prime Reading about 6 months ago, and Boston is on it now. And that's really been a blessing for us. It's exposed us to a really wide audience.
Oh, wow. And do they let you know that they're picking it up, or is it just picked up?
Yeah, there's they do. They send you an email, and it is a volunteer thing. You can say no, thank you if you want. They give you a flat fee. Anybody that's Prime can pick it up on their Prime device and read it. And so, but obviously, with having 4 and about to have 5 other books in the series, plus the Jason series, anytime you can get featured in any way, it's a real benefit. And it's been a real blessing for us. So the Homicide series is doing well.
Oh, yeah, I have to check out Prime Reading. I'm a Prime member. I wasn't familiar with that program. I'm going to check it out.
Oh, yeah. And we've actually run into this for your listeners. We've run into a problem. I ran into it today, that if a lot of people have a Prime membership and then, for instance, the spouse will be connected to it, but the Prime Reading, for whatever reason, only shows up on the devices that are primarily connected. The remote devices, the free book is not showing up. And so you have to go in through whoever. If your wife is the primary person, you have to go in, buy it free on the Prime, and then you can read it on your other devices. So I don't know if that's boring your readers or your listeners, but I have had people run into that. But it's a good program. They've got some really, really good books that they're featuring in their Prime Reading.
So now, were you a fan of mysteries and suspense as a reader before you started writing?
Yeah, as a young guy, I read a lot, and of course, Clancy, Ludlum, Pelham 123 was one of my favorites, and so that was the kind of book I read. It was the kind of thing that I was interested in, and so when I sat down to write something, even way back when I tried my first book in Florida, it was a kind of a spy book or a crime book. The crime came around because my wife and I are avid watchers of the crime shows. You know, the true crime or the real crime, whatever you call it.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah, we love those. So that fits into my interest, and then the writing just carries over from that.
And what's your writing process like? Do you do you outline a lot before you start to write, or?
I am one of those that I guess it's kind of backwards. I don't know. I need a plot before I need characters. Now, obviously, in a series, you've got your characters in place, but like the city murders, even before I pick the city, I'm looking for a plot line that interests me and I think I can develop. And then I will write that plot line. I'm a big one for this happens and this happens and this happens, and I have it all laid out before I start writing. And then I will go and find the characters, seek out the characters in my head that I want for the storyline. But the really cool part, for me anyway, is that as I'm writing the scenes that I've predicted, all the stuff that happens in between that I never had an idea was going to happen. And
wow.
that's the fun stuff. I'll come out of my office and after writing for a couple hours, and I'll just be jabbering on about how this happened to my wife, and she's like, she just sort of puts up with it. But literally, the things that occur when you're writing, those are the ones that really excite me.
Going nicely, yeah. So the best feeling there is when it comes to writing.
Yeah, it's kind of hokey, I guess, in a way. But when a character says something and you go, "Oh, that's so cool! I really like that," and it's almost like it comes from a third party.
Yeah, and I like your style. I read the preview of the Miami homicide.
Yeah, are you referring to the dates rather than chapters?
Right.
Yeah. Location and date. I kind of I don't know where it came from, but it reminds me a little of Law and Order, where they move from it's the morning and they find a murder, and then in the afternoon they're at the coroner's office, and then in the evening they're going through files in their office, and the day progresses, the investigation progresses in a timeline. And so I thought, well, I'll try that instead of just chapter 1, chapter 2. It seems to have worked out. People seem to like it anyway.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's like I said, I've never seen that before. Like, kind of nice thing about being independent, where you can just kind of try things out and people respond to it. And so, yeah, you don't want to write in chapter 4, go for it.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't really thought of that. I mean, from the standpoint, I suppose if I had been writing these for a publisher, they might have been reluctant to, that just doesn't look right at the top of the page type thing. But, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot you can do as an independent author that you can't do, when you're published. Now, I've not been published, but I've seen what my son has gone through. And, they'll write him and say, this is just not going to work. We can't do this. And even though he may love the character, they'll say, no, this character's just got to go. And as an independent author, you can say, well, no, I like that character, and that character's staying. So it does. It gives you freedom, obviously. But I think the self-publish still carries a certain, it's not as much as it used to. I don't know what you think, but there's still a certain stigma to whether the quality is going to be there or not from a self-published author. I mean, to some extent, picking up a new book is still a crapshoot. And I understand that with readers. They're like, if they've had a bad experience, that sometimes they don't want to try somebody new. But I think self-published people have come a long way in quality. Wouldn't you agree? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially the last, 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I think in the beginning, people, they were just uploading first drafts, really, and you can't get away with that anymore. You'll get it won't last very long with the reviews. So yeah, but yeah, you're right. Somebody might have read a self-published book, 5, 6 years ago, and they might have real bad memories of it compared to what it is now. Yeah, I think your e-reader people are. At this point now, I don't know if it's 50%, but it's a lot of your selling books anymore are self-published. And people have, we certainly have a following that is, gives us a good opportunity when we put a new book out. We have a certain following that are going to give it a try because they've been happy with the previous ones. And it's just so huge an advantage to have people that support you on a regular basis. Clancy or whatever, of course, not now, but your regular authors, they stick something out there, their name is on it. I mean, half the time the name is bigger than the title, isn't it, on the book? Right, yes. Yeah, and so it's almost selling the name rather than the title, because they have, people see the name on the top and they say, well, it's probably going to be a decent read. And that's one of the advantages that a long-time published author has. If they're putting out good stuff, right? It's all about putting out good stuff. Right, yep, exactly, yeah. Yeah, but that's a very good point. Yeah, we have to really tell the story, whereas a big-name author just doesn't, they'll get a bunch of readers just based off the name. Yeah. And do you see a lot of your readers, like, are you like trying to publish on a certain schedule, so you always have new stuff out, or how often are you publishing? I have a schedule simply because it seems to work out that way. Right now, I'm putting out about 4 books a year. It takes me I like to take a little break in between books, and then I'll start up again, and by the time it gets through all the editing and gets put up, it's about 3 months, which I guess, I don't know, but I guess it's fairly fast. Certainly by traditional terms, it's fast. But I've been putting out the last couple of years about 4 books a year, and now they basically rotate back and forth between the City Murder series and the Jason Strong series. And so there's a couple new in each series each year. And so it works out to a schedule, but it's just sort of unfortunate enough that I'm devoted my time to it. I don't have another job, so it seems to flow pretty steady.
And you work on only one at a time? You're not writing in both worlds?
Yeah, no, I've never tried that, and I'm reluctant to. It's amazing how much writing I do laying in bed and that sort of thing, and I'm afraid I'd start throwing facts and figures and ideas from one book into another if I tried to do more than one at a time. So I have not done that. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but I'm not sure that I would succeed at doing more than one at a time.
So is Jason Strong, where's he located? In what city?
That came about from, I had mentioned I'd driven around Dallas. We went on a vacation to San Antonio. And so we spent, enough time down there to get a feel for the city. And when I decided to write the book, Where's My Son, I needed a place, and that was the most recent place I'd been. I didn't really want to do it in my home state. So I picked San Antonio, and that's where it's been, and stayed. And it's worked out, it's worked out fine. It's not as, San Antonio is the vehicle, is the location, whereas in the City Murder series, the city themselves is part of the vehicle for the story. Whereas the Jason Strong series is it just happens to be in San Antonio now, that sort of thing.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But it turns out in some of the books, the advantage with the Gulf Coast, I've been able to go over there and near Houston, that sort of thing. And then I've had interaction with the U.S.-Mexican border and that sort of thing. And so from that standpoint, it's turned out to be varied enough that I could, do the storylines I wanted to.
So what's going to be your next writing project?
I'll do a Jason book. I've got the basic plot in mind. I've got to go through editing and everything still on this one. So, this one I'm hoping to have out in a couple of weeks. And then I usually try and take 10 days to 2 weeks, just sort of, I don't know if I'm just letting my mind clear from the previous book or what, but I usually take a little break in there and do some household chores and stuff, and then I'll go back and start on the new Jason book. And I just, right now anyway, that's just kind of the way it rotates. And so hopefully I'll have a new Jason book out late January, sometime in February type thing.
It's the schedule seems to be working really nicely for you, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm fortunate in that, there's a lot of people that would love to be able to write full time, and then there's people that I read the other day. There was a lady author who does very well. She writes 8,000 to 10,000 words a day, and that's just mind-boggling to me. I couldn't possibly do that and sit in a chair that long. So, but I have a basic word goal that I try to meet each day that I write, and I'll write 5 or 6 days a week. So, but I don't mean to pretend it's a hard life, because it has its stresses, but I'm very lucky to be doing it.
And what do you use to write? Do you use like Word or like a Scrivener software type program?
I use Word exclusively. I use OneNote for my planning, and I use Word to write with, and my editor has, is happy with it and all that kind of stuff. And so it works out well for me. I've never used, I've read about some of the other products. I've never used any of them. I just never really had a reason to change. Mm-hmm. And so, I've just stuck with Word. And it works good for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's obviously working very well for you, so don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I use OneNote for my organization, and one of the things that I find really helpful with that is when you do a series. Okay, so number 16 was the last Jason book. So in that time, characters have changed, characters have died, and so it's really important to keep some sort of a record of, what happened to who, when, and how many kids somebody has and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really an organizing tool that I use a lot to do. And then every time you do a book, you have to update it, because mm-hmm. one of the things I try to do is have the characters' lives, have a timeline in the sense that they're getting older and their kids are getting older and that sort of thing. And so you really have to sort of have some sort of tool to keep that. And OneNote works good for me.
And do you still find time to read? Or are you too busy?
The truth of the matter is I used to read all the time. And I know that most authors and the big authors will tell you if you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. But I don't read as much as I used to. Mm-hmm. I read to some extent, but in all honesty, I find myself critiquing the reading or the writing that I'm reading, and I don't lose myself in the story. And it's my own fault that I can't relax in that sense. Hopefully one day that'll go away. But I can read, I'll read a couple pages from the book, and I'll be like, oh man, I wouldn't have said that way, or it's not that I'm right. It's not that their work is not as good as mine. It's just that I can't turn that part of my brain off. And so it's kind of ruined it for me. So I like to do crosswords and Sudokus and stuff like that to sort of get away from the writing.
Okay, John. Well, I'm not going to take so much more of your time here. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. For the readers, listeners who want to find you, obviously on Amazon, and you have a website, and I'll have links to that. But what's your website?
It's www.jcdalglish.com.
Okay.
And I have a Facebook page, and of course you can, now I will say that for those that are interested, if you sign up at my webpage for the mailing list, which I don't spam people, but nonetheless, you do get a free copy of Where's My Son, if they want to read it. But, so, nice. Be glad to have anybody try it out if they want to.
Oh, okay. I'm at your website right now. So that's the first Jason Strong novel. Great. Yeah.
Yes. That's it. They get a copy of it. They can read in their Kindle or on the phone, any kind of a Kindle reader. And I occasionally have somebody that can't get one open, and they write me, and I send them a PDF. But I want to make sure people get it if they do. And then I do giveaways of signed copies and stuff like that through my mailing list. So. But I know people don't like to get their inbox filled up with junk.
Thanks so much, John, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. It was very nice talking to you.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate it very much. You have a good day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. I'd like to ask you to please review and rate this podcast over on iTunes. It really helps me get the word out. If you take a few seconds of your time to do that, it would be much appreciated. You can also visit my website at thrillingreads.com/podcast for show notes on this episode, as well as information about the podcast in general. And you can also sign up for my mailing list there. You'll be getting special offers from our guests, as well as information, behind the scenes information on the podcast. And please do visit my author website at alanpeterson.com. I appreciate your support. And so until next episode, I will talk to you then.